Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
Hello and welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis, and today I'm very grateful and very humbled to be joined by Ted Hanik. Ted's got many hats and has had many hats, but he's a self-sabotage coach. He's working on a documentary called Planet Mind Control, which we'll talk about at the end. I'm really looking forward to hearing about that too. Ted's had an awesome story. Just a little bit of a background. He's worked as an animator on The Simpsons. He has an Emmy Award. He's got a no coffee program now. He's got a water warrior program. He's self-sabotage coach. He's a life coach. He's a pretty awesome person, and he's really transformed his life. And it's a very inspiring story from what I've read from his newsletters. So I'm looking forward to delving into this today. And Ted, welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm looking forward to hearing your story, and I'm sure my listeners and my viewers are as well. So take it away, and I'll mute my microphone.
Yeah. Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on, Nathan. It's a privilege and an honor to share my story. I don't know quite where you want to start, but I'm happy to go back to maybe the Simpson experience or maybe my health journey. Like you said, I've worn a lot of hats. I've done a lot of different stuff, and I've come down a lot of paths, and then discovering the truth about what really creates or destroys health, and it's really transformed my entire experience of life. So perhaps tell me where you want me to start, and I'll.
Well, we could probably start. Yeah, we probably start at the start. So start with your health journey, and then that might carry into the Simpsons journey, and then at the end we'll talk about Planet Mind Control and some of your programs, and and then a dad joke or an affirmation or something at the end from you. What do you reckon?
Yeah, sounds good. So my health journey, it really intertwines very well with my Simpsons story. I really consider that I woke up on The Simpsons. So I was working on The Simpsons during 9/11. So that was, for a lot of people, that was a wake up moment. And for me, that was a very startling realization of what transpired that morning. But my health journey was such that it's really intertwined with The Simpsons, because in the late 90s, I was not very healthy. I graduated college. I was a good 60 pounds overweight, very lethargic. I had digestive issues. I was very stressed out and anxious all the time. And that was just my natural state. And I got really passionate about drawing and animation and figure drawing and anatomy. And I realized that, I couldn't really exist the way I'd been existing. I was in a very toxic relationship with a girlfriend. I was eating my entire diet was fast food and just garbage, and drinking beers on the weekends. And I just was not doing what needed to be done to optimize my health. And I knew that I just had basically zero passion in my life back then. And I was just in a very negative spiral. So I started removing a lot of things. I broke up with the girlfriend. I cleaned up my diet. I didn't know anything about natural health, but I figured if I went vegetarian and cut out all the fast food and soda, and I started walking, that would be a good start. So that's what I did. I was vegetarian for over 3 years. I just started walking every day and just moving my body, and just doing that and that alone, I dropped a good 50 pounds and went back into school. I got a second bachelor's degree in animation art and animation. Was super competitive during that time, so I worked really hard to learn how to draw. I used to study at the Animators Union up in North Hollywood, and I have the whole Hollywood experience. I actually made it on The Simpsons, so very fortunate to make it at all. And then when you get on that show, or in entertainment in general, I believe, it's crazy, right? You get in there and it's a pressure cooker. I thought, and this is also part of my health journey, that this tearing down of these delusions or these ideas we have, I thought when I got in there, it was just going to be like paradise, right? I'll be drawing every day. I work on The Simpsons. It's going to be amazing, right? And I got in there and it was like a pressure cooker, and very unceremoniously, it was welcomed in. It was like, there's your seat. The director will see you soon. And it was just like, all right, get to work. You got 10 scenes to do a week. They would walk around, make sure you were on task. And we had quotas, and it was a pressure cooker. It was very, very, very intense. The learning curve was very steep. And I had to really learn about my own conscious evolution and my belief about attaching my self-worth to an industry like that, which was a major pitfall that I fell into back then. So I really tied my own identity into working on The Simpsons, because on a Friday night in Los Angeles, partying in Hollywood and going down the Sunset Strip, and obviously I was in a self-sabotage behavior. I'd be drinking a few, doing whatever on Sunset, talking to girls, doing whatever, and you're like, hey, I'm an animator on The Simpsons, right? So the ego is very happy, the ego is very pleased, and that became my identity. And I worked there for a couple of years, and the industry started taking a downturn after 9/11, and went on a seasonal hiatus, which was typical for an animator on The Simpsons. The TV season ends, you go on a break, and then they bring you back. So I went on my hiatus, and I got a phone call that, like, we're not bringing you back. They cut a lot of people during that time. Wasn't really my fault, but there's just the industry was in a state of flux.
Hmm.
So I found myself out of the industry, and all of a sudden I didn't really know who I was anymore. All of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, I'm not that guy who's the Emmy award winning animator on The Simpsons. And I really had to figure out who I was. So in that moment, it was like, I mean, it was a moment that I will never forget. The phone call happened on a Wednesday about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and all of a sudden the Simpsons experience was over. It was just over. And that was really when I really was forced into a position of realizing, like, who am I? Who am I outside of this industry? And I had just been taken on this kind of egoic ride, and I'd gotten my health in a certain place, but I realized that my mindset wasn't in a place where I could really understand how to navigate this new state of being. So I was very fortunate during that time, because right at my conclusion of The Simpsons, a background artist had told me about a program called the Landmark Forum. So I went through the Landmark Forum, and if you're not familiar with that, it's basically an inquiry into why we do what we do, how certain things happen to us in our life, and we make meaning around those things. So, for example, if let's say you're 13 years old and you approach a cute girl in junior high school, and she shuts you down, and maybe she tells you a bunch of stuff, and then you make that mean that maybe, well, I'm not attractive to the opposite sex, or I'm not worthy, or any number of different things, when in actuality she may have just been having a bad day, or she was nervous as well about being asked out or whatever by another 13-year-old. But it's these stories that we have in our head that we play out as reality. So that was my first glimpse into seeing that it's the human being is a meaning making machine, and I have choice in the matter, deciding how that narrative and how I drive that resonant frequency into my life. So I started to change the way that I thought, change the way that I approached my mindset. And it took a lot of years to really recognize and understand that the mindset is a huge part of health and wellness. And then also understanding that the physical body, like, there is a communication pathway from your gut up to your brain. So if your diet is off, or your gut microbiome, the bacteria that inhabit your gut, if all that stuff is off, you're eating a lot of processed foods, very high carbohydrate foods, a lot of beer, alcohol, things like that, it feeds the bad bacteria. And so then all of a sudden you get in a place where it's an uphill battle. So the two are really, they work together, right? The mindset, the health and wellness, your approach to your diet, breathing, oxygenating the body, alkalizing the body. And it's been a long journey to understand fundamentally just how we create health. And I really just started to discover that when I was on The Simpsons, because at that time I was just a guy with a pencil just trying to fit in and do my best work. And now at this point in my life, it's something that I look back on. I'm very grateful that I had that experience, but it's just you shouldn't let any sort of industry, profession, boss, whatever, be able to, like, slap a label on you and tell you your own self-worth, which is certainly the mistake that I made earlier in my life. And it set a path for me that I had to really understand that I actively choose that. And that was a big mistake I made during my time on The Simpsons.
Uh, that's a really awesome story, mate. What was your biggest form of self sabotage during that time? Was it just the drinking and the partying and the ego? Like, did you have a bit of trouble getting back into your heart space and that? Like, how did you find being able to, like, oh, I call it the death of the ego? Did you go through a similar process like that yourself?
Yeah, I mean, my self-sabotage back then was pretty typical of what you would imagine. I mean, I had no real idea about what I was actually doing. It was working on The Simpsons, like I said, and the ego gets very happy, right? So then all of a sudden I had friends in Los Angeles, and you start to meet different people. Like I went to premiere parties, you start meeting some of the actors that are the voice actors for the show. You're in Los Angeles, so maybe you bump into some celebrity or whatnot. I met Mark Hamill at a premiere party. I talked to him for about 20 minutes, and I was like, man, I'm gonna like. We were talking about animation and drawing, and his son was interested in animation, so I was like, man, I'll teach your son how to draw. I thought maybe I was going to be invited to Luke Skywalker's house for dinner. Um, so it just becomes like, this becomes like the norm, right? And I sat next to a girl that was my, on the show as well. And she was Fabian's daughter, which is probably, it's a singer from a previous generation, but he was like on the level practically of like an Elvis, but she was a celebrity that was working there, and she was, she didn't do much of anything but party and hang out. And on Friday night, it was like, let's go down the Sunset Strip and let's get drunk, let's smoke cigarettes, let's do any number of different things. So I was, on one hand, I was working really hard and trying to prove myself in animation. But on the other hand, I'm like, I'm drinking. That's when I got into coffee. So I started drinking coffee because I saw everybody on production drinking coffee. So I started drinking tons of coffee, and we all know coffee will make you more stressed and dehydrated. So I got more into, that whole arena. And then I was definitely a big partier. So, going Friday, Saturday night, you're going out drinking. I would drink to excess. I was doing any number of different things that were just not wise, not smart for trying to, further my career. So, and it took a while for me to figure out that this was not assisting me in any way, shape, or form. And, that was really big to understand how we differentiate between basically what you're actually saying, right? I'm like, I was being a vegetarian. I was like, I'm focused on health, but I'm going out and drinking and smoking on a Friday and Saturday night. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So, that was really a journey to understand all that stuff.
Yeah. Was there like a moment where you thought or felt, oh, maybe this life or this stuff that I was doing is just not benefiting me in any way? Like was there like a little voice inside? Like, because I had a little voice inside that was saying, Nate, you got to stop drinking and partying and chasing girls every weekend. So I just listened to that voice. Did you have a similar experience in terms of
Yeah, I mean,
change? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, look, I think everybody has a moment of clarity, right? When, let's say you drink to excess, you wake up the next morning, and, it was fun at a certain level, but the body, there's no free ride, right? There's no free
Yeah.
lunch. So you wake up the next morning and you're just like, dusting yourself off and looking in the mirror, and you're like, man, why did I do that? Never again, right? Never again. And I certainly had some, benders where it was just like, this is not how I deserve to live my life. But it wasn't until much later where I really started to understand and listen to that inner dialogue
Yeah.
and really tune into that frequency of like, what is going on with me? What am I attracting to my reality? I started to understand that it's not just about that, these substances that we abuse for to take ourselves for like a ride, but it's also like, what am I allowing in? What sort of frequency am I attracting to my body, to my reality? And when you really stop to look at like what it's doing to you and what you're actually allowing to happen to your body, you realize it's the holistic view. So it's not so much about that I have like an epiphany moment. It's just like a slowly, gradually an unveiling, an understanding that this is doing nothing but destroying me. And if I'm living a life in congruence with my higher self and being in on a path to living my best life, then it just has no place in my life anymore. And I found that as I got myself healthier and healthier and healthier and became more in tune with how things affect me, because when I was younger, I just thought it was normal to like, plow through a double Western bacon cheeseburger with a soda and a fries. And then afterwards just be like, like just I have to pass out on the couch because I have no energy. And you just live for that moment where you're ingesting it. And what happened was I started to like remove a lot of these things from my life. And then you like maybe you dabble and bring some of it back. And you're like, I feel like absolute garbage. It hits you 10 times harder when you start to like veer off.
Mm.
And that was really understanding, like I say that I want to be one way, but then I'm living a different way on different instances, and I realized there was no integrity there.
Mm.
And another big moment for me was, when I got married. When I got married, I made a very clear and definite choice in my mind that I wasn't going to be that guy that was going to be getting, drinking on a Friday or watching football and drinking and just wasting time.
Mm.
And certainly when the kids arrived, when I got, I have two boys now, um, I feel that it's very important for me to set an example, and that example would not include, having alcohol in my fridge or just actively destroying myself, because I want them to see, that I exercise, I take care of myself, I drink water, I don't destroy myself with any number of different things. I don't distract myself. And if I'm off course in some way, I want them to see that I'm able to have clarity of mind to understand, to allow that pain teacher in,
Mm.
and to be able to course correct and navigate and be able to do that with a clear mind, because I'm not poisoned and I'm not living in a lower vibrational frequency. So that was really the path for me. But I would say the biggest thing was like getting married and having a family was definitely, all of a sudden, like, the door is closed on that life. It's like that life is just, it's part of my past. And I personally, I don't understand how, I mean, I'm nearly 50 years old, and I personally don't understand. I mean, I see like some of my old friends and stuff, they still drink every night. It's like, I don't understand how you do that. When you're married, you have a family, you got responsibilities. It just seems like a natural evolution to just push that to the sideline and be like, that was something that was for my youth, and now I'm going to leave that behind. But obviously, you and I well know, there's other forces at play, right? People are being brainwashed and conditioned to believe that this is the trophy, this is the decoration of a successful life.
Mm.
And it's unfortunate, and that's our calling, right, is to help people to understand how that's actively destroying themselves.
Yep, it is, and it's through so many different avenues. It's like it's the newspapers, it's the news, it's the print media, it's the media. It's like they're just hammering it in from all angles, and yeah, it's just becoming consciously aware of what they're trying to do. And a lot of people are living their lives subconsciously at the moment, aren't they? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, it's unfortunate, right? I mean, there's so many forces at play,
Mm.
and we're under attack, really. And I feel it's really our calling, to actively push back. I look at it now as it's a spiritual warfare, and to partake in diminishing your ability to live your best life and to have clarity of mind by, destroying yourself with coffee or alcohol, or even just your home environment, right? Like cleaning up your home environment. There's toxicity everywhere.
Yep.
And that was a big piece of my story, was understanding like all the different vectors of toxicity coming at you from every angle imaginable.
Mm.
So, we do our best, right? I mean, I can't live in a bubble. I still live in this world, but we do our best to mitigate exposures, and certainly you want to extract yourself from what most people are doing, because look at the results that most people are getting,
Yeah.
and look at what is happening out in the world. And it's really about, setting an example of what it means to be a strong leader. And a
Mm.
strong leader doesn't allow themselves to just use your human vessel as just a joyride, to destroy it.
Mm.
And that's certainly, I had my time as a self-saboteur,
We all
as
did.
I think a lot of us that are drawn to being coaches and helping other people. We have a story, right, where we were actively engaged in destroying ourselves. And I think a lot of us that turn to coaching and turn to understanding all this is, some of us are some of the best at self-sabotage. And I think that makes us really, really good coaches. So, like, I had my time, and now it's about how can I be the best that I can possibly be. And I know full well I still live in this world.
Mm.
So it's about, once you understand at a conscious level how the subconscious mind works, how they're actively engaging and diminishing us,
Mm.
then you can navigate it. But if you're just blindly following and you're blindly listening to what is being told to you from your environment, you're really working at a disadvantage. So it's really important. Like, I'm very fortunate. I got, Jason's right here. I get a chance to work with him and talk with him, and it's unique to be able to, and obviously with you and the other coaches, it's like we have a environment that we can speak to our best self, and that's really the beginning, right? That's the spark that starts to ignite the world, and that's the goal,
Mm.
is to share the message and share the message wide, that people, they have active choice, and that choice is right in front of them, and it's something that we can all navigate in a new way and start to just change the vibration of this world. Because look, I'm nearly 50, and I'll run this thing as long as I can and be as healthy and vibrant as I can, but I got young kids, and I want them to live in a world that doesn't look completely upside down and backwards at the same time. And from where I'm sitting, it looks like an insane asylum out there, and people don't even know what they don't know. So we got to inform them and educate them and open their eyes.
Yeah, and it's just baby steps too. It's like, did you find that when you were making these changes, did you find that you couldn't make too many at one time? Because during my journey, I found out about alcohol and the things that I was doing, I just cut it all out, and I found it really hard making those big changes because the subconscious, once you're back in that herd. So I just cut everything, just went cold turkey on pretty much everything. Did you stagger yours, or did you do what I did and just cut everything out at once? Like, how'd you find that process?
Yeah, good for you, man. That's awesome. Yeah, it depends on like what we're talking about. Like for example, coffee.
Yeah.
So I'm very cut and dry. Like my wife would tell you, I'm a bit of a machine when it comes to my approach to health and wellness. So I was like super into coffee, about as into coffee as you could possibly imagine. I was taking coffee classes. I used to brew my own coffee. I would roast my own coffee. Like I did it all because I was very focused on it.
Yep.
And then I started having some health issues around basically my coffee habit. And I just didn't feel well. I was stressed out all the time. And I started working with a naturopathic doctor, and she told me that the coffee had to go.
Yeah.
And initially, that was just hard to hear. That was really hard to hear. But I removed it basically overnight. I was like, I have the ability to tell myself, look, why don't you remove it for, let's say, a month? It's like a micro agreement, right? Let me remove it for 2 weeks. Let me remove it for a month. And then all of a sudden the month or the 2 weeks becomes like, well, I've gone this far. Why don't I go 3 months? Why don't I go 6 months? Why don't I go a year? And if
Yep.
I really love it that much, I'll bring it back after 6 months or a year or whatnot. And I found with coffee, I mean, the first like week was absolute hell. It was miserable. I had a pounding headache. I was on the floor. I don't recommend, just if you're a big abuser of caffeine, I recommend you taper off of it. But I just was like, it's out of my life. But I haven't looked back since. It was like it started off as like, let me try 2 weeks or a month, and that was like 6 years ago. So once you experience life without these things, it's something that you at least can actively choose.
Yeah.
And pretty much that's how everything has been for me. I got to a point, when I was like 27, 28 years old, I had run that course as long as I could. I had sustained myself on basically fast food, beer, giant burritos, you name it. It was going in my pie hole. And I'm not a tall guy. I'm like 5'6", 5'7". And I stopped weighing myself at a certain point because I didn't want to know.
Yeah.
But if I had to guess, I would say at my peak, I was probably about 215 pounds.
Wow.
So I have no business being 215 pounds. I'm not a tall guy. I mean, maybe if I was 6'3", maybe I could pull that off. But I started making incremental changes, and it started very gradually. But the early results that I got in terms of my energy and just feeling better, that became like, it just solidified my resolve. So like, for example, I cut out soda back in 97 because I had a friend tell me, look, if you cut out soda by itself, each soda is about 140 calories a can. So if you cut that out at the end of a year, just from soda alone, you could have dropped 6 or 7 pounds just based on calorie consumption. So just like that, I'm like, I'm done with soda. So I literally have not had a soda since the late 90s, since 97. So, and then it was like understanding like how these things have impact you. And it became something easier and easier just to adopt these changes. But now today, current day, um, it's just about understanding how to navigate. So if I do veer off, let's say I veer off, I go out with some friends and maybe I'm off script, at least I understand where that groove is, where I deserve to be, where I really get the best results.
Mm.
And so I can just go right back there. Whereas before I would veer off and I'd be, off in the weeds somewhere for the next 6 months, destroying myself with any number of different things. So it's like, I have a minor discretion and I'm right back. Minor discretion, I'm right back. And then I can choose. I can say, no, I don't want that dessert, or I'm not going to do that. And I have control over those choices, not like it's something that's just automatic and I'm just going towards it. So that took a bit of work. It takes a bit of discipline.
Yeah, I find it the same too. Like what you just said, like I have a little minor and then I don't beat up myself for it. I go, okay, well, what's the lesson here? Learn the lesson. Okay, well, next time I'm saying no. Next time I'm going to go out with these bunch of guys and just hang out with them and not do the things that I was doing previously. And yeah, it's the same thing. It's like that. You don't beat up on yourself, because when you feel that guilt and those emotions, it's like, yeah, you're going back to that state. It's like just progression, not perfection. Yeah, I'm resonating with what you're saying, because I'm currently, doing the same thing. Because I'm that age where you said you were before. I'm 28, so what you were saying before really resonated, really did.
Yeah, well, I mean, good for you, man. You're way ahead of the game. I mean, at 28, 28, where was I at 28? 28, I was living in I moved to Boston back then. I was living in a lot of stress and anxiety, and that's a big part of my story too. Is I think I still grapple with it at different points, even now. I have to be very conscious because I tend to be high energy. I tend to be I'm a doer, right? So if I'm not careful, I can get all caught up in just doing and not being. And so I think it's really important. Like I work with my own coach. My own coach is Jeffrey Combs. If you want to follow him, he's awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
He's just an awesome guy. Very, very similar to Jason in a lot of ways. So Jeffrey talks about breathing and releasing and letting go. These addictions, right? Addictions to a state of being. So we can become addicted to these lower vibrational frequencies like overwhelm, stress, anxiety, shame. And so look at what's going on in the world the last few years. A lot of it is very shameful, right? It's pointing the finger, divide and conquer, right? It's like you're not adhering, you're not doing the right thing, or if you are doing what the narrative says, you're like applauded, you're a hero, right? So there's a lot of mind control going on, and a lot of people are living in this very lower vibrational frequency. And so if you get caught up in a lot of stress or whatnot, or just a lot of the to-dos of life, which I can get caught up in for sure. It's about just getting into your body, taking a breath, and realizing that all these things that we're doing are just it's all sort of futile, right? It's
Yeah.
I mean, we all deserve to just go outside, get some fresh air, get some sunshine, and just give gratitude for your life, right? That's
Yes.
really what's important. So I commend you, man, for
Thank you.
like you're 28 years old and you're well ahead of where I was at that age.
Well, thanks for saying that. But expressing gratitude, I'd love it when you said that. And what does Jason say? He said it during my session as well, and I actually wrote it down as a quote. It's like, it's a program. It's not you. It's not who you really are. And you can be reprogrammed in a matter of 2 minutes if you watch that Max Major video, which I'll put in the notes down the bottom for those that are interested. It's like you can change very, very quickly once you're consciously aware.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so fascinating about what Jason so eloquently brings to the forefront. He explains it so clearly
Yep.
so that your conscious mind can just grab onto it and understand it. And then it's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Yep.
And what am I allowing in? You can't deny what he teaches. It's like right in your face. So if
Yep.
you are able to uh take that in and really understand it, I mean, he's a master at what he does.
Mm,
And I think it's really important that that message gets out to everybody.
I agree.
And I'm doing everything I can to help him to get that message out to as many people as possible, because it's really unfortunate that I see a lot of people they don't know how their mind works. They don't know how they make meaning out of their environment. And it's unfortunate. And I see a lot of divisiveness, right? People are very much caught up in their egoic mind. very much like weighing and measuring and pointing the finger. And there's just suffering there. That's all just suffering in the ego.
Yep.
So it's really about releasing that and understanding, like, what drives behavior. And people have to do a lot of work, really. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I mean, for example, another one of my early influences was Dr. Robert Kusar. So if you look at Dr. Robert Kusar in Earther Academy, he talks a lot about the same things that Jason talks about, but from a different slant. And he talks about how there's so much toxicity and humans are so toxic that they're rife with parasites. And so what he says, which is very interesting, if you're eating the standard American diet, if you're drawn to a lot of sugar and carbohydrates and pastas and all of these things and beers, he's like, are you hungry or are they hungry?
Yeah.
And parasites can mind control you. They will drive you to have certain behaviors, to be drawn towards certain foods. And you really start to wonder, like, where do we live? What is this place, right? We have these demonic creatures that inhabit our bodies. If you go to any grocery store, most of the food feeds parasites. And most people have no idea about detoxification. We're rife with heavy metals. People put heavy metals in their mouth in the form of mercury amalgam fillings. There's all kinds of heavy metals that are being put in your jabs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so what's really going on here? And then if you bring it up, if you shed a light on this, all of a sudden you're a Looney Tune, right? You're a conspiracy nut. And it's really interesting. It's fascinating what triggers people. Can't even have a conversation about these things without people, their feathers getting ruffled. But I know for me personally, I mean, I could study detoxification, proper supplementation and de-stress and detox. All these things are fascinating to me. I could study it the rest of my life, but most people have no clue about how to take care of this human vessel that they own. And unfortunately, once things break down, they look to the system to quote unquote fix them. And it's unfortunate that system has really no vested interest in them being healthy. So what's going on here? What's happening? Why can't people see it, right?
Yeah, I disagree so much. They can't see it. Well, one, they're got full of parasites, full of mind control, and two, when you do bring it up, it's like you're breaking their belief system because they're comfortable being comfortable. This is how I see it. They're comfortable being comfortable, and if you're coming in saying, "Oh, you might want to look into these things. There's something fishy here," you say, "Well, there's aluminium in your jab, and there's also other stuff in it too." It's like you're breaking their belief system, so they're choosing not to hear it. Cognitive dissonance. They just shut down. I've actually spoken to people about this stuff, and I've seen them. I've seen someone yawn. That's cognitive dissonance. They don't want to hear it. Like I've said, you might want to look into that thing in your left arm. There's some really bad stuff in it. Aluminium and the what is it? The graphene oxide. Just started yawning. I'm like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty wild what's going on. And obviously if you follow what has been happening the last few years, it's really interesting to look at how this is all rolled out. In a way, I'm grateful that I went on a conscious journey to learn about the things I know when it comes to natural health, when it comes to the subconscious mind. I had done all this work way before 2020. So when this thing came on the horizon and people started talking about it, and I was like, well, viruses don't exist in the first place. Most people aren't prepared to hear that. And, when they start looking at like what they're doing to remedy the situation, it's like, they're putting down markers in the grocery store, walk this way, cover your face, and do all these different things. I'm like, this is insanity. This is the classic definition of insanity. This is insane. And it continues on, right? It's just a slower grind, but it's not like it's left us. And I wonder sometimes, I'm like, were things always this crazy, or have I just woken up to a state of understanding it and seeing it so clearly that I don't quite know how to compartmentalize and understand the reality I inhabit anymore. So I think back to, like, sometimes fondly, right? Like before I woke up, you think back to when I was a kid or when I was a young adult, and I used to love to watch movies. Obviously, I worked in entertainment, so I used to love to watch like Back to the Future. I was a huge Indiana Jones fan and Star Wars, and now I find myself, I can't even really take in popular culture anymore. It just turns my stomach.
So,
And when you really understand like Hollywood and how all this stuff works and how they're placing things in the environment, they're mind controlling you, they're putting in predictive programming, and how all these things are tied into MK Ultra, and how they're using this technology to shape behavior, shape your subconscious mind, drive your behavior patterns, and it's all been playing out in real time over the last couple of years. If you look at all the movies that have come out about contagion, well, first of all, contagion's never been proven to exist, so there's that. But hey, they released how many different movies about contagion? So people, they have a recognition that somehow back there, they recall that that's a real thing because they saw it on a movie somewhere, they saw it on TV, and people are led by fear mostly.
yep.
And it's really unfortunate. And when you're poisoned, when you're eating stuff out of the center of the grocery store, all the processed garbage, your body knows that you're not as powerful as you could be. You're energetically weak. Most people, like, I'm big on hydration, big on water. Most people drink dead water, and then they eat dead food, and then they wonder why they have no ability, no connection to their higher consciousness, to their ability to manifest and create, to be able to connect and resonate at a higher frequency. They don't even know what they're capable of. And now I just look at people, we're like walking antennas, we're walking vibrational frequency. And unfortunately, most people are really robotic. Like Jeff Berwick calls them NPCs, non-player characters.
Yeah.
And I think that's really unfortunate. It's like we have to just knock on the door there, rattle their cage a little bit. I find that, like like you shared, right? It's statements close people down. So I think it's really good when you're talking to people, just ask them good questions.
Yeah.
Plant the seed. Do you see that this makes no actual sense? Does it make any sense to cover up the place where you breathe? Does that make any actual sense to do that? I mean, I see people here, it's, what are we, like 3 or 4 years into this thing? And people are here, it's 85, 90 degrees. They're in their car. They're in their car alone with the mask on. It's really, really startling to see in real time. It's amazing.
It is. It's crazy. I only woke up at the start of 2020, but my journey was pretty quick and pretty swift. Like, I got into Jason's content during 2020, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I started really getting into his content at the start of 2021, and I was like, all right, I got to make some changes here. And then the school opened up, and yeah, that was he had him at home
That's
like an
awesome.
absolute freight train for me. Like, everything he was saying about alcohol, the negative thoughts, the living your shitty life. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing all this. I labeled myself the king of it all, to be honest. I ticked every single box. The love life, the whole kit caboodle. So it's just interesting that, how did you find Jason's content yourself? Did you see some of his posts? Did you perhaps meet him, or like, how did that come about, you and Jason? And for those
Yeah,
that
I
don't know,
mean,
that's
that's
Jason
awesome.
Christoph. For those that don't know, that's Jason Christoph.
Yeah, yeah. That's so cool. I love your story, man. That's awesome. Jason has a real talent and a real skill to deliver very hard-hitting content with a smile and make you feel good somehow. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he
Yeah.
does it, but he's an amazing individual. But yeah, so on my health journey, I started to really inquire. It was an inquiry. It was exact time my wife was pregnant with my first son, and I started to really investigate. I started looking at, like, well, wait a minute. If, like, whatever you're putting on your skin, whatever you're doing, that's impacting the pregnancy. So I started to delve into all natural health because I was already working out. I was very focused on, being in the gym and being optimal, just following a lot of Dave Asprey content. And that's where I got really into coffee. But um, as I started to uncover natural health, I started learning about vaccines. That was really my first my first step into like an alternative way of thinking, right? So I started to research vaccines. And then what I initially was learning and discovering so blew me away that I became obsessed with vaccines. I studied nothing but vaccines for like 2, 3 years. And that's when I met Amanda Vollmer, who helped me. Mentioned somebody who got me off of coffee. That was Amanda.
Yep.
And then shortly thereafter, I just stumbled across Jason's content. I don't even quite remember. Maybe it was on Facebook or something.
Yep.
And I started listening to some of his stuff. I watched some of his YouTubes. I immediately bought some of his. He had stuff where he was talking about. He was presenting in a hotel, and he did like these symposiums where he's talking about all the different things that are affecting our mind, all the things like mercury amalgam fillings, vaccines. Look at what's going on here, what's happening here. And I immediately messaged him, like I'm sure a lot of people do, and I was like, "Man, you're speaking my language." And I established a communication with him, and we just kept in touch over the years. I helped him periodically with some of his video work. Like I really was like, "Man, your stuff deserves to be like at another level."
Yeah.
And so I did a little bit of video work for him. And then I was, my trajectory was coming down here to Mexico. And he was like, I really want to produce a documentary. I want to do it with you. And I was like, I was like already going to come here, but that was like, all right, I'm for sure going now because I have an opportunity to collaborate and work with Jason, who I have the utmost respect for. I see the amount of people that he's been able to wake up and help.
Yep.
He's a true blessing to the world.
I agree.
So my real hope and my goal is that his documentary that we're working on together takes his audience and his reach and at least 10x's it. That's what I would love to see happen, is to really take that message of his. He's working on the script right now, and just take it and like just get it out to as many people as humanly possible.
I love it. Yeah, that documentary trailer was awesome too. I shared that the other day. I'm looking forward to it.
It was
come out next year.
What's that?
Is the documentary going to come out next year, 2023?
Yeah, so we're working on it right now. He's working on the script for it right now. So we're deliberating on like how best to convey the information. I was going to do an interview style with him, but he feels more comfortable doing it as a voiceover. So it'll be probably predominantly voiceover. I'd love to interlay some of his story because obviously he has a story, how he woke up, right? And how he took his content to this level. So I know as somebody who's been a long time fan and just watched his trajectory, I personally want to see some of that in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're in production right now. I would imagine it'll probably come out, I would guess like maybe February, March of next year, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So definitely if you want to subscribe to my newsletter, I'll keep everybody updated on how it's going. And I try to share different stuff from my health journey, things I think will help people. Obviously, if you want to subscribe to Jason's newsletter, he's got I don't know how he does it. I even asked him like, man, how do you churn out so much amazing content on a daily basis? He's a very hardworking individual. He's very committed to helping as many people as possible. So it's really a privilege and an honor he's literally 5 minutes down the road.
That's awesome.
So it's pretty cool to be able to walk over and collaborate and talk to him. Like we talked about, right, in the coaches group, that you are the sum of your environment, right? So to be this close to the fire, right, that close to the man himself and some of the other coaches here, I definitely feel it in myself, right? I'm like attracting a different vibe. I'm feeling differently about the things I'm even working on myself, having to up my game because I'm hanging out with Jason and everything. And that's a great thing. I want to be challenged. I want to be in a place where let me bring my A game to this environment. And that's why I came here. That's why I came to Mexico in the first place. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. It's coming soon.
I'm looking forward to it. That was just so cool, then. It's like I'm doing the same stuff now. It's like changing my frequency, changing my vibration, attracting in people that are maybe a couple of steps ahead, just so I can just copy, mirror, and mimic them, so I can be better, so that my content's also better as well. Yeah, it's just
man. It's a rising tide raises all ships, right? So we're all in this fight together. And like Jason has talked about in the past, it's like the morphic field, right? So if I change my vibration, if you change your vibration, if you start making different choices, I start making different choices, we start posting different content,
Mm.
it's like a butterfly effect, right? It affects everybody.
Yeah.
Somebody picks up, like it's that 100 monkey effect, right? Somebody understands that somebody's doing something different, and they pick up on that and they start doing something different too.
Mm. Oh, it's just awesome, isn't it? It's just awesome how it works. Like you're putting that frequency out there, so you're expecting that back. Like I say, the universe is like a mirror. It's mirroring back your reality. If you're putting love out there, well, you're getting love back. And it's like not only are we exercising and doing all these healthy things for ourselves, which is great, but we're also doing it for the rest of humanity as well. And that's the most powerful thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I love what you're doing with the podcast. I see other coaches, I'm like, I'm so inspired by what everybody does in the group. It's so cool,
Same.
right? It's like Jason just takes and like he just dusts you off, pulls you up and just says, "Hey, get out there and be awesome." And all
Yeah.
of a sudden you're like, "Yeah, let's be awesome."
It's really
And I
literally
just
for me. It was awesome. Yeah.
yeah, it's like once you understand, and once you understand that dialogue in the back of your head that's like maybe telling you that, you're this, you're that, which I fell victim to for a lot of years. I mean, I shared in my last newsletter when I worked on The Simpsons, it's like I achieved that goal, right?
Yeah.
And you would think that you're like, I'm here, I made it, and you're feeling very elated and grateful, which I did at first.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, it's like the environment was such a pressure cooker, and I was like so nervous and anxious. And so then you have this whole conversation in your head of like, maybe I'm a fraud.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not good enough, and maybe I don't belong here. And then if you're not careful, you just exist in that sort of like lower vibrational energy, and you understand your environment. You start to attract that, right? All of a sudden, it's like, well, things start working in alignment with that belief pattern. So we have to just let that go and start to realize that we deserve to be healthy. We deserve to be abundant. You have a gift. We all have a gift. So it's really time to take your power back and start expressing that gift.
I love it.
And that's really like what I think Jason's so powerful at, is helping people to realize like, just go get it. Go get after it every day. And I love that. I love that energy. And that's really what speaks to me. I speak the same language. I'm always working on something. I don't watch any television. I don't, like I moved into this apartment here, and the cable guy was like, "Hey, what channel do you want? It's all in Spanish or whatever." I'm like, that thing is going to be unplugged anyway. I don't even look at it. So, I got way more important things to do with my time.
Same here. And it's finding that time. It's like this system has robbed everyone of their time, right? Like everyone's working their 9 to 5, 9 to whatever job. And then they're coming home and doing those things that we've just been talking about. But it's robbed them of their time. It's like you have the time to flick on the Netflix, flick on the movie. It's like, well, how about realizing why and remembering why you're here, what your superpowers are, and go and chase that. Don't have to work in a mundane, shitty job for the rest of your life. Work out and remember why you're here. You're a sovereign being, and just remember that we are sovereign, we are powerful, and go and live that and chase that dream life, and that will help with the frequency and low and upping the vibration.
Amen, man. You said it perfectly. I mean, it's really about what, like, that's why, look, when we started off, I was talking about a bit of my health journey, right? So they're tied together. So if you're struggling, maybe you're listening to this and you're like, I'm struggling and I don't know where to start. Start with like the nuts and bolts of your health. Like get the vessel healthier, which I was telling Jason the other day, and this is something I've told other people as well, but this was like a unexpected offshoot of me getting healthier. So I initially just started to change my act, right? I started to like remove coffee. I started to lower some of the things I was doing in terms of toxicity into my body. I started to focus on proper hydration. And all of a sudden, my stress response started to come down. And when my stress response came down, then all of a sudden I felt like, wait, I don't have to be frenetically stressed out all the time. And then I was able to start to think about like, okay, what about the things that I'm feeding my mind? What about my mindset? What about my connection to God? What about the messages that I'm receiving from God? Or what about how I meditate or listen to hypnosis, or whatever I'm doing to reframe my entire existence? Whereas before, when the vessel was such that it was a lot more polluted, I just didn't have the capacity. So I really tell people that are starting off, that are struggling, just focus on getting your health back. Focus on just keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah, love that.
And it can be, something that if you can at least set that action, set that intention and commit. And even if you do it for, like, let's say you commit to, like, I'm going to make this change for like 2 weeks, a week, 10 days. You certainly don't want to like white knuckle your goals. You don't want to be in like a forced relationship with your goals, but you just want to stand in your power and really manifest what your ideal life would be, and imagine it now. Imagine it exists right now. And what would that person, how would you behave if you already inhabited that reality? And it just, all of a sudden, you won't be as attracted to like the soda, the beer, the fast food. It just doesn't call to you. It doesn't have the same frequency. And that's really been my experience. And that's what I tell clients is, like, you just have to focus on how can you get your health to a different state. And then you can start to add in all these other things. And it just makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. I love that. That's exactly how I did it too. Yeah. I got healthy first too, and then Jason came along, and then bang, I was away. It's just getting healthy. I love that. Such a powerful message. I'm going to make that a reel on Instagram, I reckon. Share it to the world. That was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's look, being I tell clients all the time, like, being healthy is not complicated. It's not but unfortunately, our modern world makes it really complicated.
Yeah.
So you have to understand how to navigate all these different assaults. It's like they're coming at you, like, and if you're not careful, they'll just hit you right in the face. And before you know it, you're like, I can't take it. I just, and if you're living in stress, like, stress will put you into fight or flight, obviously. And then that's going to make you adhere or cling more tightly to these like pleasure-based things, right? Like, okay, I'm really stressed out. I need a beer at the end of the night. I'm really stressed out. I want to have a Big Mac. I'm really stressed out, whatever. So you got to focus on the stress. You got to lower the stress, and then you have an opening to make a conscious choice. But it's really about understanding how the body operates. Like, even just breathing. Most people don't even understand how to properly breathe. And just, you can look at a guy like Wim Hof. Yeah, most people are breathing through their mouth. They're sleeping with their mouth wide open, which is a more sympathetic dominant or fight or flight response. So basically, just, you're not really meant to breathe through your mouth. You're meant to breathe through your nose. You're getting more nitric oxide. You're actually oxygenating your blood more effectively. So, what I've done in the last 5-6 years is I just tape my mouth shut when I sleep at night. And just make a conscious choice to breathe through your nose. Take a nice deep breath. Get the breath down in your belly. A lot of us breathe up in here. I mean, even here, I'm sitting at this chair, right? So I'm more apt, my organs are compressed. I'm more apt to breathe up in here, very shallow. So that's immediately more fight or flight, more stress response. We're living a very unnatural life. We're meant to be outside. We're meant to live in community. And unfortunately, we're all, we're looking at our devices, and we're all like this, like tunnel vision, right?
Yes.
So, it's about connecting with one another, get outside, and keep it as simple as possible. It's not complicated. It's just our world makes it challenging, for sure.
No, it does. And it's been designed that way on purpose too, which you'll probably cover in Planet Mind Control. Yeah.
That's right.
I was just going to say, just to wrap things up, I often ask my guests if all of that resonated with them, which was such an awesome chat. Ted, thanks for coming on again. But I often ask my guests at the end if there's one takeaway that you would like my listeners and the viewers to take away. What would be your message for those people that are like, oh, gee, I'm stuck? And I guess you've already said it. It's getting healthy first. But is there anything else on that as well for someone that's actually struggling out there?
Yeah, I think the one thing to focus on, I think what really moved the needle for me was detoxification.
Yeah.
Detox. So what most people don't understand is that we live in a toxic world, and your body does a fantastic job of holding on to toxins. So if you have a lot of excess fat, the body, what it does, it just walls off all that toxicity and throws it into your fat cells. And so that has a cost, like a metabolic cost. And most people have no idea about detox. So I run clients through a functional medicine detox. You can do a 7, 14, or 21 day. There's a guy, Josh Mason, the detox dude, and his story is fascinating. He had heavy metal, he had mercury fillings in his mouth, and he had all kinds of heavy metal toxicity. And he's become an expert at detox.
Mm.
And detox is a huge area of study. And if you can get yourself in a position where you can go through a functional medicine detox, you can learn about heavy metal detox, learn about like removing all the toxicity, removing all the parasitical infections that most people have. I mean, this is an area of study that I would love to just delve way deeper into. And I think most people have no clue how much toxicity, like think of a fish tank, right? If you had a filthy fish tank, how much clarity of thought do you think you would have in that fish tank or in those fish? How healthy do you think they would be? Well, most people are walking around, we're like big energetic water bags. And so if you're toxic, it makes sense that you're not going to attract certain things. You're not going to have clarity of thought. You're not going to have peaceful and loving thoughts. You're going to have a lot of negative vibration based upon the toxicity of your body. And if you're stuck, that's like this is why I bring it up, is that I've had clients where we just go immediately into a detox depending on where they're at and how well they can metabolize. But I've seen people get their life back in the series of like 7, 14, or 21 days. Drinking the right water, detoxification. You would be amazed at what you can manifest and what you can change in your health picture by making some small and targeted changes in what you're doing. And it's really not that complicated. And if anybody listening to this, if you want some guidance, you want some information, I mean, I could put something in an email, just like bullet points, that if you did them within a month, I guarantee they change your life, 100%.
Agreed. Love it. I want to put your stuff down the bottom so people can actually do that. Yeah, definitely reach out to Ted and reach out to me too, because I have programs as well that can help. So it's all about asking for help too, isn't it, Ted? Help is okay. It's okay to ask for help.
Absolutely. I am the result of a lot of people that like I didn't watch Friends or whatever. I listened to Jason Christoph. I listened to Robert Kusar. I listened to Amanda Vollmer. I listened to Dr. John Bergman. I listened to Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn. I mean, these are some of my, just off the top of my head. And it really, like, you would be amazed. I remember, just to close out here, I listened to a Jim Rohn audio, The Art of Exceptional Living. I listened to that about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Within the first 10 minutes, my mind was blown. It was like, he talks about how, like, if your life was like a combination lock, and it could be like somebody says one thing to you, or you hear one piece of information, all of a sudden click, and the lock opens.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like when you are ready to hear it, that teacher will arrive and will show up and will teach you exactly what you need to know at the exact moment that you need to know it.
Exactly,
and that is the beauty of our world.
It's exactly how it was for me.
Yeah, like I mean, Jason is a conduit. He's a conduit for a lot of people. And that's why it's an honor to be so close and be supporting him and helping him. It's I just hope that a lot of people are able to awaken through his message. And if I can have any part in that, that is a blessing for my life, 100%.
I love it. Such an awesome chat, Ted. Thank you so much for jumping on. Like, you've given people a lot of takeaways and to go away and become their best selves. I'm so grateful to have all that, to have you on here and all that information that you shared. It's just awesome. If there's anything that you would like me to share in the notes down the bottom, just flick us an email after this. And hopefully this gets out to a lot of people, because that was an awesome message.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. And if I can do anything for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Like if anybody listening to this wants to communicate, just hit me up. It's just ted@hanichealth.com. And I'll do everything in my power to help you achieve your health and wellness goals. And I'm sure, for you as well, you'll do the exact same thing. We're on a mission to help as many people as possible. And that's how we change things in this world.
I'm on a mission to help the teens and the young adults, because my age group at the moment, well, you know what that's like, don't you?
Yeah, they need your help, man.
They do. Have you got a dad joke to finish, Ted? You're a father. Do you often crack dad jokes? Do you? I love my dad jokes. So
Oh
I'm
my
going to share
gosh.
them at the end if I get. You got
You
one?
got, you must have one.
Yeah,
Help me out with a dad joke.
I've got heaps, mate. What did the left eye say to the right eye? Something between us
What's that?
smells. Something between us smells.
I love it. That's awesome.
Thank you, Ted. Thanks for jumping on, mate. That was an awesome chat.
Yeah, good talking to you. Have a great day.
You too.